Theo, we're into September now, and we would have thought by now that political uncertainty, especially policy uncertainty in South Africa, would be a thing of the past. That we'd be living in a more certain environment with a government that was business friendly, and had the right attitude to what needs to be done to fix the economy. Unfortunately, we've still got land expropriation as a major topic. We still haven't seen a resolution on the mining charter. And from what we're getting in terms of questions from our clients, it's all around what's happening, what's going to happen next, when's this all going to change, when are things going to get better, what do we do, what do we say, what's actually going on?
Warren, to get back to a normal situation where politicians act on behalf of the best interests of South Africa is going to take a long while. And we don't know what the exact outcome is going to be. And I think previous Minister for Finance, Pravin Gordhan, said it quite clearly when he said, this is going to take a number of years to resolve. But let's get back to the big question around the land. We don't know what the outcome is going to be. If you want to try to see what it's going to be or try to predict, it's almost impossible. There are a lot of role players and it's a complex issue. The challenge is that the press will give you the far right and the far left's positions. Unfortunately, these players are not what is happening. This discussion, fortunate for South Africans, is being discussed in the center. It's a real role players that are talking to one another. It is not the far left and the far right. So when you read press reports, it's usually about the far left and the far right because that's what sells newspapers. That gets eyeballs on TV. But the discussion is in the middle. And that discussion, as long as it's a rational discussion, which all indications look like, it's difficult to predict. There will be some positive outcomes and there will be some negative outcomes. That's the aim of discussions. If you're in discussions, you're going to negotiate a solution. That means there will be give and take. There'll be slight winners and there'll be slight losers. And that's usually the best possible outcome. So my view is that we don't know what the exact outcome is going to be. What we do know is that the fringes are not going to determine it. But that doesn't mean one needs to sit back and just play along. You can structure any portfolio given your specific view on how that outcome is going to be. And I think that's where it's important from a financial planning point of view and from an investment point of view. A client needs to respect that nobody can predict the exact outcome, but also need to know that they've got the tools to adapt their portfolio to where they perceive the outcome is going to be. And I think that's where the financial planner comes into play.
I agree, Theo, and I think from a financial planning point of view, the other important factor for investors to consider is that they can't be too extreme in their views. So even if you believe as an investor that we're going to get a negative outcome from the land expropriation issue and potentially from the mining charter as well, it doesn't make financial planning sense to then send every single cent that you have out of the country on the basis that the rand's just going to collapse forever, because there are international factors that drive the rand as well. It's not just domestic factors. And as time has shown us and history has proved, often international factors play a far bigger role in moving the rand over short periods of time than what our own policy decisions will dictate. So I think from a planning perspective, if you believe it's going to be a negative outcome, then I think it makes sense to start having a strategy where you might overweight your investments to international investments, especially rand hedge shares on the JSE or actual pure offshore portfolios. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you have to maintain some exposure to the South African market on the basis that you might well be wrong. As you said, that the political outcomes in South Africa are so uncertain, and none of us can be that confident that we know exactly what Cyril Ramaphosa and the cabinet are thinking and what the top people in the ANC are thinking. So I think from a planning perspective, having a good strategy in place that's properly diversified makes a lot of sense to me, but making sure that you are going to benefit when your view, whatever your view is, potentially turns out to be wrong. And for example, those who are incredibly positive about South Africa and potentially that's a good decision, they also need to have exposure to the overseas markets, because that view might also not work out. So I think be balanced, be rational, try and take a 10 or 15-year view with your investment decisions, and try to understand that you can't predict these outcomes. So try and forget to some extent what the politicians are currently doing, because the politicians we have today are not going to be here in 15 years' time.